Welcome, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This is the new FCV. So today you'll be able to see the exterior, and then the interior and other detailed information will be presented at another occasion later. In 2010, in November, Toyota announced that we will launch the sedan type FCV in 2015. In Japan, this FCV sale will start within 2014, and it will be sold at Toyota and Toyopet dealers. How about the price? We think that approximately 7 million yen will be the price. And in 2010, we said that we are almost sure the price will be less than 10 million yen at present. But in the last 4 years or so, that in addition to brushing up as a product, that to realize price to be accepted by customers, we did our best in our development by and making this effort. We managed to reach this level. So let me now reflect upon the history of the automobile evolution, and I would like to touch upon the way the automobile should be, and then our initiative to develop environment technology. Around 100 years ago, at the end of the 19th century to the early 20th century, the horse-drawn carriages were in their heyday. In New York City, as there were over 70,000 horses, horse-drawn the carriage was there, and then there was a mixture of the cars and then horses, and then the steam engine, and of course electric vehicles, which had a simple structure, were quite popular as well, but they eventually declined. And the latest comer was the gasoline vehicle. Despite the defects or problems, that later on the technology advanced, and there was a rapid spread of the gasoline engine and gasoline vehicle. So one of the examples of technology innovation of the gasoline vehicle was witnessed by the electric self-engine starter in 1911, which was mounted upon the Cadillac, and it has become a natural function now. However, at that time, the people started the engine by turning manually the crank rod. It was a heavy work, and the people got injured by the reverse rotation. And technology innovation further occurred to popularize the vehicle by Ford, namely the Ford Model T's belt conveyor assembly line enabled mass production in 1913. When this assembly line began operation, the assembly time, which used to be 12 hours per unit, was shortened to 1.5 hours. And after that, in 1908, when it was launched, that of course the Model T was $850, but in 1920s the price was reduced to a third, the less than $300. The automobile, the vehicle for a small group of the rich people, now became affordable for many people. After the end of the World War II, in 1956, the Federal Aid Highway Act was adopted in the U.S. The law was signed by President Eisenhower, and the project they had a combined length of 66,000 kilometers and the cost of $25 billion over 13 years, and which would promote building the highway network by the federal government. As the number of automobiles increased, the demand for gasoline increased as well. in Texas and other places, new gas fields were discovered, and then refinery technology such as thermal cracking advanced, and then the sufficient gasoline supply became available, and then the sales method also advanced as well. Initially, the gasoline was sold in a canned format and sold through the retail shops, but the gasoline stations appeared to enable direct refueling into the cars. Gas stations opened across the country, from cities to the rural streets, which supported the diffusion or wide use of gasoline-fueled cars. And finally, the gasoline-powered automobiles became popular. And though it was a late comer, it became due to the user, the environment, which also advanced, such as roads and fuel. The gasoline vehicles defeated the steam engine and electric vehicles. So this has brought about many things to people. For example, that it can transport people and goods to a distant place fast, and it enables mobility anytime, anywhere, and it creates a mobile personal space not offered by public transportation. And as a result, economic activities were boosted. People can go to various many places to be in touch with diverse society and culture. And it does not mean just physical mobility which became easy, but rather the mobility created a lot of added values and possibilities. Meanwhile, since the 20th century, the automobiles became popular, and around the same time, the industry and technology also advanced globally. In conjunction, the mass consumption of fossil fuel began, and then people started to have the concern about the supply of the oil resources, as well as the other environment issues related to the increased emission of CO2 and so forth, like global warming. So the future energy, the supply-demand balance is another important issue. As to the crude oil supply forecast, the crude oil produced by the conventional oil fields might decrease, but as an alternative, liquid natural gas and then oil sand and other non-conventional resources will be developed further, so it is expected that global oil supply will increase. And what about the demand? This chart shows that regardless of the advanced countries or the developing countries, there is the linear relationship between the GDP and distance traveled. As the economy grows, in the future, the transportation demand is expected to increase further. In 2050, the global population is expected to reach 9.6 billion, and 70% of the population will live in cities, and the global GDP is forecasted to increase more than threefold. In conjunction, it is set to intensify the environment problems like global warming, air pollution, and traffic congestion. To solve these issues and challenges, Toyota believes that it is necessary to take initiative to realize a sustainable mobility society which allows us all to move freely in an environment-friendly, sustainable manner. So this is the image showing the future mobility society and its supporting infrastructure. It does not only depend upon fossil fuel alone, it uses diverse energy sources like the renewable energy and the CO2-free electricity and hydrogen as a natural part of infrastructure. This kind of society is not bound by the energy limit, but rather the people of the world live in harmony with nature to lead affluent lifestyles. So Toyota's mission is to supply vehicles to satisfy the need of customers in a timely manner in such a society. Thus, Toyota considers the environment problem as the major challenge we should solve. developing efficient low energy vehicle and enhancing the diverse energy sources, and then contributing to the widespread use of eco car by making contribution to environment. That is a basic principle for R&D efforts. For a while, the petroleum is likely to stay as a mainstream fuel. Therefore, in an initiative for energy efficiency, oil consumption should be saved. And then, in other words, fuel economy is so important, and that is a priority issue. We'll endeavor to improve the fuel consumption efficiency of engine as well to promote the popularization of hybrid cars. At present, for passenger cars, we have hybrid vehicles and the compact cars and large vehicles, SUV, minivan, and the commercial vehicles. In other words, we have a full lineup of hybrid vehicles to popularize, or we would like to make it easier for the customers to choose. And we are grateful that many customers choose hybrid cars. And since 2012, the annual global sales is more than 1 million units. At the end of December 2012, the global cumulative sale surpassed 6 million units. We really feel that hybrid car is now in its phase for the true popularization. Toyota regards hybrid technology as a core technology to be applied commonly to many future vehicles. For electric vehicle, EV, and for plug-in hybrid vehicle, PHV, in addition, for the fuel cell vehicle, FCV, namely the next generation eco cars like FCVs, our technology and know-how developed through hybrid development can be quickly and easily applied. So from now on, I would like to talk about the automobile fuel and powertrain diversification. To replace automobile, what are the alternative fuels and their characteristics? Each alternative fuel has its own strength and weakness, and depending upon the country and region, the energy policies differ. At present, it seems difficult to narrow down the choice to one fuel. We Toyota regards hybrid as the core underpinning technology. By taking advantage of characteristics of each fuel type, we are developing the multiple vehicles in all directions, and thus the future automobile fuels become diverse, and in conjunction, the automobiles will also become diversified. This chart shows that example, the vehicle size, and then the distance traveled, as well as the power train suited for each fuel, namely that the different vehicles have different purposes, that is segregation of the domain. Due to the environment energy problems, 100 years ago automobiles appeared, so now we are facing with a new period of diversity. That is to say, history repeats itself. Now, we believe that amongst the diverse fuels, the electricity and hydrogen are the promising ones especially, so I'd like to touch upon those. First is the use of electricity. In the use of electricity, Toyota believes PHV is prominent. With PHV, no concern for power outage, and you can feel safe to use it without limitation at all times. Therefore, it's easy for the customer to choose, and it is the electric vehicle most suitable for widespread use.
On the other hand, there are various disadvantages such as short range and a long time for charging in the case of EV. However, at the same time, the drivers can enjoy quiet, smooth driving and will emit no exhaust gas during driving and can be rechargeable at household, which gives a different advantages compared to conventional cars, and therefore Toyota considers that EV is the vehicle that is best suited for particular purposes such as short-range traveling and fleet use. Next, about the hydrogen. Just briefly, what hydrogen is all about. That's the first point that I'd like to touch on. Hydrogen is abundantly contained in water and fossil fuel. And at normal temperature and normal pressure, it's colorless, no taste, and no odor. It's very light and easily dispersed. And it's also easy to react, and that could be applied to a wide range of applications starting from chemical materials to fuel. And also, when it is used as a fuel cell, the high power generation efficiency can be achieved. Hydrogen application has a long history. In fact, since more than 200 years ago, it has been utilized for the street lamp. At household, there was a time when hydrogen was mixed with the city gas. In industrial application, it is utilized in large amount for fertilizer production, and also it is used in the process of the oil refinery process. Hydrogen, based upon rich experience and state-of-the-art knowledge, is the fuel that could be used in a safe fashion, just like gasoline and natural gas, and therefore we hold strong expectation that it could be utilized as a fuel for vehicles. Here are some characteristics of the hydrogen. When hydrogen is consumed, it doesn't produce carbon dioxide, and therefore this could be the front runner in realizing low-carbon society. It could be produced out of fossil fuels such as natural gas or the sewage sludge that has been seldom utilized in the past. Or it could be produced from water utilizing renewable energy such as solar and wind. In fact, hydrogen can be produced out of a wide variety of primary energy sources. Compared to electricity, it has a high energy density. It's easy to be stored and transported, and therefore it can resolve the unequal distribution of energy as well as respond to challenges of renewable such as variability, fluctuation, and instability, and it can enjoy a wide variety of applications as well, starting from the household use all the way to fuel for vehicle as well as for power generation. Therefore, it is rather difficult to pinpoint the fuel for vehicles in the future, but as I have just explained, given all those considerations, we consider that hydrogen is a very promising energy source in the future. In 1992, Toyota started development of FCV, and thus we have more than 20 years of history of development. It was first introduced in 1996, and this is the FCV installed with fuel cell and metal hydride hydrogen tank. In December 2002, ahead of others in the world, we introduced the SUV type fuel cell vehicles, that is Toyota FCHV, in a limited fashion to Japan and the United States. In the case of 2005 model, it acquired type certification for the first time in Japan, and the 2008 model that is currently in use has seen a drastic improvement in the range as well as cold start. At present, more than 100 FCVs are in use. The total traveling distance has exceeded 2 million kilometers, and the data coming from the field is now given back as a feedback for development cycle. Here are some features of FCV, the advantages for drivers. Hydrogen, the fuel, it could be produced out of a wide variety of primary energy sources. During driving, it doesn't exhaust carbon dioxide. Because it is motor-driven, drivers can enjoy smooth driving and quiet driving, and at the same time can enjoy the excellent acceleration starting from the start of the engine all the way to low to mid speed range. Those are advantages common to EVs, but what is highlighted in yellow are unique to FCVs. The range is rather long with 700 kilometers, and the fuel filling time, that is the hydrogen charging time, is about 3 minutes, which is quite comparable to conventional gasoline engine cars. And therefore, this is a quite the great advantage for drivers as the ease of use. And also, the FCV gives an advantage, that is, it can serve as the power source in case of emergency. If I may repeat, FCV can respond to the need for diversification of the fuels for cars, and during driving, it does not produce carbon dioxide and other pollutants. And at the same time, it can enjoy or offer the same level of convenience of use compared to gasoline engine cars, and therefore, all those reasons considered, and we at Toyota consider that FCV is quite promising as an ideal eco cars. And in fact, FCV development is currently going on quite successfully. At Toyota, the fuel cell stack as well as the high pressure hydrogen tank at the core of FCV are under development by Toyota itself. On the right, you see the new fuel cell stack, which enjoys the world the #1 type of the performance, and because it is compact sized, it can be now placed under the seats of the vehicles. Other manufacturers tend to source high pressure hydrogen pressure tank from the suppliers, but in our case, we have been working on development on our own, and the tank storage performance is one of the highest in the world. And there will be 2 tanks to be installed, and we also take a fresh look at material and production process to further trying to reduce the cost. And for fuel cell system, without humidifier, we have achieved higher reliability and small size and compact and the lightweight system. And with the boost converter, the number of cells in a fuel cell system and the smaller motors were realized with highly efficient package realized, and the fuel cell system cost has been reduced drastically. And in fact, we are now aiming at 1/20th or lower of the fuel cell system cost compared to FCHV Advance. We'll continue to work on lower cost as well as the higher performance and the merchandising so that we can promote widespread use of FCV to realize further evolution of this technology. And the key technology in coming 100 years of cars is in the electrified powertrain. And in fact, it was in 1997, during 20th century, Toyota proposed hybrid, and we consider that this has paved the way for electrified powertrain. Hybrid technology is a core to environment-friendly technology, and we consider that this is a key technology for promoting the electrification of powertrain, and therefore we will continue to support FCV technology and evolution of the products which can support future mobility society. Hybrid technology and Peru's development could be the front runner for the new era of cars, and in fact that was quite challenging to us. But to us, challenging spirit has been embedded in our genes ever since foundation. Because of the challenger spirit, the Toyota has come to where we stand today. For Toyota, challenging means entering into unknown territory and to make a proposal for the next era. Now, cars are indispensable for our daily life, and through such products, we are trying to propose new values to customers, and through trial and error, we are trying to make such new technology eventually a norm, the technology that will be taken for granted in the coming society. That's what we are trying to aim at. And in fact, this reflects how we have moved forward through proposing hybrid technology, the Prius, and how we have made them norm in the mobility society. Now, FCV, this is a new proposal for a new mobility society. This is a way to create a society where hydrogen is a norm as one of the fuels for driving a society, and FCV becoming the car that will be for daily use. It's a long journey, but with FCV, we will continue to inherit challenger spirit at Toyota so that we can make a contribution to realizing hydrogen society in the future. The good quality cars in the future are eco-friendly, as a matter of course, and at the same time, it has to be a car that drivers can enjoy comfortably and safely, the fun to drive. In fact, it has to be a vehicle that delivers an exhilarating, rewarding drive fun and helps keep a planet clean and beautiful. Fun and clean vehicle. That's a value that we want to embody through delivery of FCV. To realize cleaner and better planet Earth and for future generation, we want to deliver vehicles that offer a fun, exhilarating drive while maintaining the clean environment for future generations. And for that, we'll continue to challenge new issues and problems. Thank you for your attention.
Coming despite your very busy schedule to attend this special the session. So Mr. Kato, the Executive Vice President, presented on our development initiative of FCV. Now I'd like to introduce the officer from the METI, from Agency for Natural Resources and Energy, Mr. Chihiro Tobe will be the speaker. He's in charge of hydrogen and fuel cell promotion office. Thank you very much. I'm Tobe from the Natural Resources and Energy Agency. So Toyota has announced the launch of this FCV. So at this special occasion, on behalf of the Japanese government, we would like to really talk about whether this FCV is so important for industrial policy and energy policy of the government of Japan. So far, we talked about hydrogen and energy, the fuel cell. And we emphasized in the discussion that that is very important energy source, especially hydrogen. But 10 years ago or 20 years ago, on that time, when we reflect upon that how to generate the hydrogen, how to transport it used to be the focus of this kind of discussion. So as you can see, the center of this schema, conventionally, that the industrial gas or the rocket fuel or some area of application. So only the hydrogen was used only by a small group of users. But now any farm for the household use has become possible. That is, hydrogen is extracted from gas and it's used for the generation, and the heat is used to heat up the water and create hot water. So any farm was launched in the market in 2009. So almost 80,000 units are already installed in society at large. So generally speaking, the consumers at large can see it, and any farm is now used by the consumers in general. So now we are finally talking about FCV, fuel cell vehicles. In other words, at the stage of the use that the general public now has a bigger opportunity to actually use it. So that is a new phase, so different from the previous state. As Mr. Kato mentioned, that we are now they're talking about the significance of realizing the hydrogen society, because the fuel cell is such a high efficient technology. so that it will make a great contribution to energy saving, conservation, and hydrogen is can be extracted from many sources. So far, there are some of the underutilized the technology or maybe renewable energy, and then maybe hydrolysis of the water is used as a basis to extract this hydrogen, which will contribute to the energy self-sufficiency and the efficient use of energy, and you can reduce the burden on the environment because CO2 is not emitted during the usage phase. In terms of industrial policy, the Japanese technology level is very strong in this area. So, of course, the number of the patent application filed and NFAM, that is household use of fuel cell in 2009 for the first time in the world. Japan has launched that technology of NFAM in the world, and then it's been 5 years ever since. But so far at home, that this is still sold to the household, and only Japan in the world is still using and selling that. So today we are expecting the vehicles, automobiles, to be launched in the market. Maybe Japan is a pioneer to sell that in the world for the first time. So Japanese industrial technology strength is maybe accumulated here, and this is like the symbol of that. So CO2 and environment measures are so important and demanded globally. So 2040, 2050 is where that we will have to face with the constraint of this CO2 emission, and that's a requirement as well. Left-hand side at the bottom, you can see this. The transport sector, this shows this consumption, the total, and 20% or more is the transportation sector, and automobile is a majority of this emission, and then all this consumption of the energy, and oil products are still the basis, mainstream fuel. But if hydrogen can replace it, let me repeat, that this the untapped the energy, or it could be shifted to this renewable energy sources as well. So that switch is quite helpful. On the 11th of April, the cabinet meeting made this decision on the energy basic policy, and then so the national government, the energy policy is based upon this. So this is almost like a Bible for our policy. So hydrogen now is given the high priority, as Mr. Kato mentioned, that hydrogen is important, promising energy source for the future. So the national government also takes it seriously in the same way. There are 5 points stipulated. First point is the wide use and expansion of the introduction of stationary fuel cells like NFAM, or for the industrial and office purposes, that kind of the fuel cells will become popular, should become popular, and we will accelerate the introduction of fuel cell vehicles, and so the hydrogen, the refueling station is necessary through the regulatory reforms. And the third point is based upon the expansion of the hydrogen demand, and we need to do that, specifically that the hydrogen power generation. So that is where the large amount of hydrogen will be used. And now globally we are faced with the environment issue, and then more use of hydrogen will be demanded in the future. So we have to create the demand, but to respond to that, we have to have the supply here in Japan as overseas, namely the low-cost, stable supply of hydrogen is necessary, which will take time to prepare. So we have to make step forward steadily and start preparing for that now. And item 5 shows a formulating roadmap for the realization of this hydrogen society, and I'd like to elaborate on that now.
About roadmap development, in fact, it was on Monday this week that the roadmap was finally developed. Sorry that it is rather difficult to see, but on the part of METI, we established Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Strategy Council, a committee to discuss those matters related to fuel cell and hydrogen, and we have invited expertise, including Mr. Ise of Toyota. And out of this discussion at this committee, starting from upstream all the way down to downstream, that is starting from the production all the way to transportation and use of hydrogen, it requires concerted efforts among the government, academia, and industry. And that has been discussed at that committee. And at committee's discussion, in a stepwise fashion, we have to resolve various technical challenges, and at the same time, from cost and economic point of view, we have to consider the time frame that will be required, and therefore we decided to divide the timeline into 3 phases. Starting from phase 1, we are now seeing the development of the stationary type fuel cell as well as FCVs. So ahead of the rest of the world, we want to capture the world market through those technologies. Around 2020, at the time of Tokyo Olympic Games and the Paralympics Games, we want to demonstrate the technology that we have to the world. And then comes phase 2. That will be in late 2020s. That is when hydrogen demand will further grow. And around 2030, hydrogen power generation will start in full scale. Accordingly, the hydrogen supply system has to be established, including hydrogen supply from overseas. Through those efforts, when we consider electricity and heat are secondary energy, now that hydrogen could be added as another important pillar as secondary energy. And phase 3, that will be around 2040, when total carbon dioxide-free hydrogen supply system will be established. So in the first half of the times we first try to extract hydrogen out of fossil fuel. During the process, it is inevitably emit carbon dioxide, but by the time phase 3, CCS, that is to collect, capture, collect, and store carbon dioxide, which could be combined together with the hydrogen extraction process from fossil fuel, and also the use of renewable energy for hydrogen production. And those technologies will be established by then so that we can create a society free from carbon dioxide emission. More specifically, about the utilization, transportation, storage, and production of hydrogen, you see that they are color-coded. The red represents mainly the initiative by the government. And then, according to different color coding, we expect more involvement of the industry. And phase 1, 2, and 3, they are color-coded accordingly. And in the case of FCVs, and what is highlighted in orange, that's initiatives within Japan. For vehicles, we heard about the sales price of the FCVs, and in committee discussion, we talked about the future and what to go about the pricing of this technology. Around 2025, that's when first generation up to a third generation of FCVs would be launched into the market. So around that time, the price should be competitive enough compared to the hybrid cars of similar performance. That's what we should aim at. And toward the bottom, you see what is highlighted in orange. That's about hydrogen filling station establishment. In fact, the hydrogen station is quite expensive today. By giving fresh look at the regulations and through technology development for lowering the cost, by around 2020, we hope that hydrogen station cost could be halved compared to where it stands today. And with that, hydrogen price would be made in such a way so that FCV price would be competitive enough compared to hybrid cars in terms of the fuel for hybrid cars. And towards such goals, what are the specific measures and initiatives that will be adopted? As you see in the bottom of the page, on the left are about cars, and on the right are about hydrogen stations. And they have to progress hand in hand. Well, it is not the question of a chicken or egg first, but rather those two have to move in tandem. First, about cars. First, we need to create initial demand. So from that point of view, the support for introduction could be considered, and to lowering the cost and for improving durability that requires technology development. And when we consider export of such technology or vehicles to international market, we have to consider how we can go about harmonization of regulations as well as mutual recognition. Now on the right-hand side, that's about hydrogen station. Starting this year, we have already started initiatives for establishing the hydrogen station that is in commercial operation. We subsidize part of such an operation given expensive cost that is incurred in hydrogen station, the standardization of the specification, as well as a lower cost for components and equipments that are included in the system that require technology development. And starting this year, what is called the package type, that is a compact station that could be subject to subsidy, as well as mobile station. Those could be utilized and applied. And by the way, I mentioned that starting this year, we started introduction of subsidy for the hydrogen station in commercial operation. In fact, that started since last year. And of course, safety, that is of utmost importance, and therefore, we should ensure safety. And then reconsider and review regulations on materials that would be used for such hydrogen station. I mentioned earlier that since the second half of 2020s, that's when stable and affordable price hydrogen supply in large amount is what we contemplate. More specifically, this is the scenario where we assume importing hydrogen from overseas. And the left is about liquefied hydrogen. When hydrogen is cooled down to minus 253 degrees C, which is about 100 degrees C cooler than LNG. But we have accumulated experience as well as technology for LNG production. And that technology and expertise could be utilized for liquefying hydrogen. And on the right is about organic hydride. This is where toluene, that's a kind of liquid or solution under normal temperature and pressure. It can facilitate containment or the blending of hydrogen so that existing storage tank could be utilized as a facility to store hydrogen. Such technologies are about to be made available in a commercial scale, so that by around 2030, we want to realize power generation by hydrogen, so that supply and demand of hydrogen has to be created through synchronized efforts so that we can lower the cost for hydrogen. So by around 2040, hydrogen derived from fossil fuel could be produced in conjunction with the CCS technology, or hydrogen produced with renewable energy, so that we can establish the total system that is free from carbon dioxide. So that's 40 years or 50 years from now, and that's a kind of the roadmap that we have created. now that we heard about introduction of FCV in the market, in the context of creating hydrogen society, I would emphasize that following any farm, this is in fact the step to make consumers exposed to or contact such new technology based upon hydrogen. Toward creation of hydrogen society, we want to step up our efforts to move toward the step 1, step 2, and hope that this could be the stimulus to produce the momentum for development of hydrogen society. That's why we hold strong expectation to this technology. And once the cars are introduced and start to drive on the street, and when such FCVs fleet are in wide use, government is prepared to support such initiatives. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tobe of Automania.it. Now we'd like to open the floor to entertain questions and comments. Please wait a minute while we get ready the stage. Thank you. Thank you very much for waiting. We now like to start the session to entertain questions, comments. So I'd like to again introduce the participating officers. Executive Vice President, Mr. Mitsuhisa Kato, Executive Vice President. And then the Deputy General Manager of the Product Planning Division and Managing Officer, Mr. Satoshi Ogiso. And then the Deputy Director of this Domestic Sales Division and Managing Officer, Mr. Yasuhiko Sato. Those of you who have questions, please speak to the microphone. So please raise your hand and speak to the microphone. And thank you very much for your kind cooperation that one person is allowed to ask 2 questions. Thank you for your cooperation. Now, the lady in front, please. Thank you. Oshima of the Japan Keizai, Nihon Keizai Shimbun. I have a question to Mr. Kato. 2 points of questions. First point, that the timing of the launch. So far, 2015 was maybe the time frame you talked about. By the end of 2015, but previous development history was also touched upon. That this time, 2014 is now a new target, so you are doing ahead of the original plan. So why? And then second point, that the price that you are talking about, 7 million yen is the yardstick figure, and that's a rough figure. But for amongst the Toyota vehicles, like Lexus level price in terms of price range or comparison, but for the consumers to accept and then use widely, what is a likely range of price that you think that consumers are willing to buy and desirable price range? So those are 2 questions. Thank you for your question. 2 questions you said. The timing of the launch as well as the price. As to the price, Mr. Sato, the managing officer, will respond to your question about the price. As to the timing for the launch, 2014, the sedan type is to be launched, and we've been talking about that since 2010. So development is now advanced, and as we develop more, well, actual FCV to be launched, of course, you need other things, as the METI officer mentioned. Infrastructure is necessary, and then other things need to be prepared as well. So you have to discuss all those perspectives. And so that should we have the vehicle first, chicken or egg first? That has been the issue, but nothing comes first, neither chicken nor the egg. You need to launch everything simultaneously. So at an early stage, as soon as possible, of course, we have to prepare. And then the reason for today's meeting is like that too. So not really late in 2015, but maybe we wanted to accelerate the R&D. So as a result, we cannot really say on which date in that year, but by the end of that year, we would like to develop so that we can surely deliver the product to you according to the schedule. So that toward achieving the hydrogen society, we have to talk about this to the customers, and we have to explain that to the municipal governments and national government and government agencies and infrastructure-related companies like energy industries people. And those people need to be explained as well. And we want to demonstrate how serious we are. That is a background why we are having the meeting today. So I use just a simple word, within 2014, by the end of 2014. Now I'd like to answer your question about the price. Sato, myself, I would like to answer. So the popularization or wider use of the vehicle is a gist of your question. I think initially that we will first would love to launch it to the society. So for some time, 10 million yen was the rough figure we are talking about. So we had to reduce the cost substantially, and we did so. And people who are interested in FCV with that likely price range might feel it's a bit of a sort of affordable range. Of course, competitive sedan vehicles and other comparative vehicles were studied. So 7 million yen level, sort of a rough figure, is now announced today based upon all that considerations. So initially, of course, the highly environment friendly the customers, or the corporations and the organizations which give the high priority to environment protection, or the public government agencies and municipal governments. And we would like to appeal to those potential customers together with our dealers so that the FCB will be accepted by them. Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, there is another hand toward the right in the front row. Matsushita from AJ. Well, first, a simple question. The previous model used to be based upon Kruger model and used to call it FCHV, and now this is FCV without H. So that's the first question, whether there is any significance to that. And by the time this is launched the early next year, do you have a plan for production, the monthly production schedule for such a product, in which plant and when? And first, about the name or acronym. It's not based upon the specific reason, I should say. Well, FCHV used to be the acronym that we used to use back then. The two launch 100 units of prototype fuel cell vehicles, we wanted to explain properly and clearly the technology. As Mr. Kato mentioned in his presentation, based upon hybrid technology-based batteries, and motors, and brake, and other technologies, we might drive the engine either by the fuel cell or regenerated the electricity. And in order to have a clear understanding, we used to call it FCHV. But now that FCV is much in discussion in various quarters, we decided to make it simple. So fuel cell vehicle, FCV. And in fact, in this presentation, we had another nickname, but we wanted to make it simple. And we thought that could lead to gaining understanding more if such simple standardized name is used. On the other hand, hybrid is now the more widely used, and therefore we decided to name it in such a way to make it simple. And about the second question, about the production plan, where to produce how many? Yes, we will produce them in Japan. As to specific numbers, it's currently under consideration. And as to where, we'd like to take another opportunity in making an announcement, but I'd like to refrain from giving further information to that. Thank you.
Ota from Chunichi Shimbun newspaper company. First, technology competitiveness is something that we can expect. FC stack or the hydrogen tanks that will be produced in-house, so that for fuel cell vehicle, maybe there are other competitive eco cars. But of course, a long-lasting competitive edge must be maintained. So is it really difficult technology that you can really maintain that competitive edge for a long time? 7 million yen is a drastic, maybe bold price you offered. You are offering, but who are the first buyers? Of course, the gas supply stations are limited, and they have to suffer from a certain inconvenience. So Toyota and the dealers, how do you intend to support those initial buyers of this FCV? Thank you for your question. Let me respond to the first question. As to the in-house production, and that is the point that we are developing a technology, because for many years we've been developing this. So finally we came to this sedan type, so that stack can be placed under the seat. 2 tanks will be sufficient now. But technically or technologically, the globally other competitors or the car makers are competing amongst themselves. That's the situation now. So this is not the final form, I don't think. So for a while to come, smaller, reduced size, and lighter weight and affordable price products should be developed further. So to achieve that, we have to develop the technology in-house. That is a necessity for us. And so continuously, we, in the area of technology competition, we would never be defeated, and we'll do our best to really hone and polish our technology. And I'd like to seek your understanding, cooperation. To respond to your second part of your question, how many numbers of stations? Because the infrastructure of the recharging station is limited, and so how do you advertise this to the customers? Maybe that's the gist of your question. Toyota and Toyopet dealers are in charge of sales for this one. But at the time of the launch, I think hydrogen stations should be located at certain areas. 4 major metropolitan areas of Japan where the hydrogen stations will concentrate. So we would like to set up a good preparedness so that the dealers should cooperate to set up a good dealership service in that sense. On behalf of Toyota, the energy supply companies and business is not the area where we intend to participate at all as of now. But as Mr. Tobe of the meeting mentioned at the beginning, that the hydrogen stations need to be developed together with the energy supply companies, and we have to cooperate with them. And that's awareness. Therefore, together with the Japanese government and energy industry people, and we would like to collaborate, especially in the initial phase. Without the supply station, hydrogen station, the cars cannot be really sold smoothly, and maybe that is a situation initially. So on behalf of the automobile industry in general, or the Toyota, we should identify the area where we can do, and we'd like to really collaborate amongst the parties concerned. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, a person wearing gray jacket.
Eric Fanner from Wall Street Journal. Just wondering if you can talk a bit more about the expected subsidy levels both here and perhaps in other countries as well.
ウォール・ストリート・ジャーナルが名前。
訳お願いします。
聞こえますか。ウォール・ストリート・ジャーナルのものです。補助金の水準について、日本および海外においてどれくらいになるのでしょうか。
じゃあ、お答えしますので。
Let me respond to that question. Well, we don't know. We don't know yet. In Japan, I believe the discussion will start involving us as well. And in the overseas, I believe different initiatives are going on in different parts of the world. And we want to work together so that we can further promote widespread use of this technology. And the subsidy can help. But this is something that we need to be involved in discussion. I hope that I answered your question.
Awake freelance. I have two questions. The secondary battery, its specification. Could you please tell us details of specification? What about hydrogen price? Because if my memory correct, in case of natural gas, that for automobile fuel, the was not set. So initially that it's like a toll card or something, and then you see that the card is shown, and then it was free of charge, but then the registered card. But in case of hydrogen, do you have something of that? So like registered card system, how do you do the charging or payment system? The first question about the battery, I would like to respond. Actually, here, I cannot really respond to you about the type of battery to be used, battery spec. But let me give some additional explanation. As Mr. Kato explained, that we developed the fuel cell vehicle, and FCV inherent or unique one is stack, FC stack, and tank, and some of this the peripheral or the auxiliary equipments were developed. But on the other hand, the 7 million is a target price range. So it should be affordable price. And to achieve that, the low price, 1 million units or more units are produced for hybrids. So maybe sharing some components with hybrid vehicle is a wise approach. Battery, motor, controller. Existing hybrid components and parts could be picked up and used, and the suitable ones, and could be integrated into the system planning. So I can give you a direct specific answer, but that's a sort of a peripheral answer to you, and hope that is clear to you. And as to, I understand you have made additional question, but let us entertain only just, sorry, the second point of your question is hydrogen, the price for the supply. Well, we Toyota, TMC, is not in a position to respond to this. That's a grand assumption. So that is energy industry people are the ones to set the price to respond to such a question. But we, on behalf of TMC, currently, the gasoline hybrid vehicle and the fuel cost borne by the customer should be maybe equivalent to this new hybrid. If that will happen, that will be fortunate for us. So that is a sort of wishes and request we express to the energy supplier industry. Hope that answers.
On the part of Toyota, you should have some expectation, but you did not mention that specifically. So could you be more specific as to how much you can charge, for instance? For instance, full charge could be made in 3 minutes, starting from 0. But I'm sure that there could be some people that wish to recharge in the middle. So if it is 5,000 yen when you start from 0 to charge it, and then if it is starting from somewhere in the middle, then that will be in a different the price. Well, suppose that you are fully charged, and then the total cruising range is about several hundreds of kilometers. And that's something that we will announce in launching this product. But suppose that what if you use Prius to drive the same range after filling the tank? And then you can calculate how much that would cost. So what I mean is that the cost comparable to hybrid driving is that in terms of the cruising range, the fuel that can cover that range should be priced in about the comparable level as hybrid. So in terms of the tax and so on, well, in the case of natural gas and others, well, you know that there was a history and how the price was developed. But in the case of tax, when it is used for a car, it's not yet developed. So that what if you launch a FCV in the market within this year? Then do you think the fuel could be free of charge for the time being? The price would be eventually developed. We don't know exactly to what extent that would be determined or in what way. So by the time we launch a product, we hope to see that the level of the price of the fuel would be comparable, as I mentioned earlier. So last question, if there is any.
A lady in the back, please. Takeuchi of TV Asahi. My question to Mr. Kato, Executive Vice President. Domestic sales are now expedited and launched earlier than original schedule. You like to have the leading position compared to the other competitors. Is that the reason why you expedite the launch? Let me answer. Ahead of others, or our product is better than the competitors? That's something I wish I could say. It's not the case. I can't say that. Because FCV is a vehicle, and the society which would support that car is something that we dream about. And a certain target timing has been placed there, and we announced it in 2010. So we've been making efforts to achieve that goal. It's not that we launch it before our competitor. It's not our goal at all. Because the good quality products at affordable price to be delivered to the customer, that's our aim. And then the result will lead to the eventual public announcement, official announcement. Therefore, of course, when other competitors announced and launched the products, we could say, oh, our product is better in technology than others. But it's not the case. We just are not just saying that we will be the top runner or the first runner. And the second question, that ahead of the other parts of the world, you launched this first in Japan, Japanese market. Why did you choose Japanese market? What's your aspiration? Well, we produce this in Japan, in Japanese plant. And as to the overseas, there maybe certain countries might have infrastructure ready for hydrogen vehicle, and then that could be maybe not there. Thinking of the schedule production and other convenience available, we first try and do the trial in Japan, and then think as a next stage in the overseas market. So it's not a simultaneous launch in multiple markets, but rather first we launch it in Japanese market, step-by-step approach of that sort. Thank you.
Now it is time to close this press conference. We'd like to close Q&A session with this. Thank you.